What's up, guys? I want to talk a little bit about uh, the Unity game engine and the news that 704 is now using the updated version of the Unity engine, which is highly touted, and people seem to be excited about or placing hope that it makes a big difference. So I'm going to talk about the engine and all that stuff. And I think a good place to start is, what is a game engine? What does it do? Because I do think that a lot of people are under the impression that the game engine makes existing games better. Like they just somehow magically improve certain things or make the game look better. That's not what game engines do. That's not how they work. Um, Game engines are basically a framework on which to build a game. Now, just as a simple comparison, it's like a canvas for an artist, right? You need something in order to create a piece of art or a painting, you need a canvas to paint on. Without a canvas, what you cannot create a painting. And let's just say that the canvas came with a set of paintbrushes. So now you as the artist, in order to create a painting, you need those two things. You need a good set of paintbrushes and a canvas. In this I know it's oversimplifying things, but that is basically a game engine. It's a set of tools and a canvas to build games on. Now, there's a lot of different game engines out there. And there is this, or has been, this view that the Unity game engine somehow is to blame for the lackluster NASCAR games that we've had. And I made a video talking about this game engine debate, and I thought to myself, I'm not a game development expert, right? I'm just a guy who plays games and or gives his opinion on certain things. But I'm not by no means an expert on game development or all the technical aspects of game development, the things that go into it, the actual nuts and bolts of how things work. I'm not an expert on any of that. So I use common sense and the things that I do know in order to formulate my opinions. So I had looked into the subject of game engines and I made a video and I talked a lot about it because I do think that there's this misconception that the game engine, the Unity engine in particular, is to blame for the, the lackluster NASCAR games we've gotten. And I wanted to debunk that. I looked into it and you can check out that video. It's already been posted, but in the interest of fairness and the fact that I can be wrong about things, and maybe there's things that I didn't know about or find out about that maybe plays a factor into things, and maybe I can look at you know take another look at the issue, and maybe I'll find out new things that I didn't know, and I could say, oh, you know what, I didn't know, or I was wrong about something. So I said, let me give it another good look through and see if there's anything that would change my thoughts on it. And I did, and I did some more research, and I really did walk away with pretty much the same feelings. Like, you know, that is basically what a game engine is. It is a foundation to build a game on, and it comes with a set of tools on which to do it. And you have to know what kind of game that you want to create and what the end goal is, right? Of what you want this game to be, all the things you want it to do and have. And as the game developer, you need to know this, right? So you know what kind of game you want to make. You know what you want in it. You know what you want it to do. And once you know that, then you decide what's the best game engine for me to use, the best set of tools for me to get the job done in the most efficient manner. Now, when it comes to this, there really is no firm right or wrong. You know, it's really up to each individual developer to decide which tools work best for them or they're most comfortable with. And gamers who are on the outside looking in, they see certain games, and then when they know which game engines are attached to those games or which game engines those games were made with, they automatically equate these two things with success or failure. Now, the thing that's happened with like the Unreal Engine or CryEngine, there's all these engines, but when you have to look at the games they were made that were made with them, and when you correlate those things, you automatically assume that, oh, this Unreal Engine is amazing, and it just creates everything you make with it. It turns out to be a masterpiece. That's not how it works. Just like an artist, they have a particular set of tools and a canvas, and it's really up to their imagination and their talent level to create something, and then people can look at it and say whether they like it or not. But you know, you don't blame the tools for a bad product, and so I really do think there is a big disconnect with what people think a game engine is and what it really is. So basically, the developer decides, I'm going to use this engine. I'm familiar with it. I've used these tools before, and I know that I can achieve the things I want to achieve with these tools, and that's what they do. They make that decision and they go with it. And for the longest time, people have been making this claim that 704, they screwed up by using this Unity engine. It's a free to use engine, and the game's going to suck because of the engine. And I never understood that argument because it never made sense to me, even before I even really looked into the subject of game engines. Just on the most basic level of logic, never made sense to me. And you don't blame the tool. Like a good carpenter doesn't blame his tools. You know, he made something that is ugly or doesn't work right. Let's say a piece of furniture. He doesn't blame his tools. He screwed up. It's on him. And as a consumer, you know, there are things I can do and there are things I can't do. I can critique a game. I can tell you whether I liked it or not, whether I think it sucks or not. And I can also tell you why I think it sucks or why I think it's good, what I like about it, what I don't like. And I can also tell you what I'd like to see changed in the game or what I would like to see added or taken out. And that is the basis of my critiques of any game. What I cannot do is tell a developer what tools to use. I can tell them what I want to see in the game. It's up to them to make it happen, right? If they care, that is. You know, my opinion is just another opinion. But the point is that my right to tell them what to do ends when I start telling them how to do their job or what tools they need to be using. And I think that it's ridiculous for anyone to tell 704 that you need to use this Unreal Engine or whatever engine, because they're the developer. They're the experts in actually making the game. And they know which tools they're comfortable with using. And it's just, I never understood this. It's just somewhere along the line, people get this idea that a game engine is something you can just use to take a game and make it great. First of all, because it is basically a framework to build a game on with a specific set of tools, the only time you can actually make a change on a game engine is in the beginning when you're going to build a game. Once you build a game, you can't change the game engine. It's the game is made. And when it comes to specific games like game sports titles, which are built on a game that spans several years and they make changes to that game, but the core of the game was built and it lasts for years. It's not like other types of games where every couple of years there's a new game and it's its own entity, right? For example, every Grand Theft Auto game that comes out has nothing to do with the previous game. And if it did, it would only be through story. The game is built from the ground up every time. It has a whole completely new map, a new, everything is new. The physics, the AI, the logic that's built into everything, the way the world works, the way it looks, everything is built from the ground up. You don't use any assets from the old game. That's not how it works. Sports titles are different. When you look at NASCAR games, like the first game of this build is NASCAR Heat Evolution. And last year was NASCAR Heat 2, which was an evolution from NASCAR Heat Evolution. It was another stage. It was another step up. They didn't build NASCAR Heat 2 from the ground up. It is a continuation of the first game. It's off the original build, which is built off of the Unity engine. So, you can improve the game in lots of different ways. First and foremost, adding more content, more things to it, making changes, taking things out that you don't think work well or shouldn't be in the game, improving things like the physics, the handling, and the AI and stuff, and that all is coding, right? There's some real super techno geeks who understand this language and is punching in numbers that tell everything that you want to happen in the game. There's a logic to it, right? There's certain math involved and stuff. It is way above my head, but that's their job. But those are numbers crunchers, right? It's real tedious, mundane stuff, but thank God there's people who this is what they do. But none of that has to do with the game engine. Now, the game engines do have some work better than others in certain aspects. Maybe it'll help you do things more efficiently or get you to where your ultimate goal is in a different path. And maybe the tools might be a little more easier to use, right? So there are advantages and disadvantages to different game engines. They're not all exactly the same, but for the most part, they are just foundations and a framework to build a game on. So the biggest problems with games have to do with developers, the decisions they make, and their imagination, right? At the end of the day, they're creating a product, and the game engine is what they use as a tool to get that job done. The failures that come with it don't have anything to do with the game engine. And it's just, I don't get it. I don't understand why people think it's like a magic wand. This next game that's coming, now this is the latest news, and several people have brought this up, and they're really excited about it, that they're now using the new version of the Unity engine, which is highly touted. So, I'm gonna keep it realistic and keep it real for you guys. Those of you who think that this is going to automatically give us a better looking game and a better overall experience, if you think it's going to come because they're using the latest version of the Unity engine, you're going to be disappointed. If you think you're going to see a drastically improved game in terms of visuals or graphics and stuff like that, you're going to be disappointed. You might see a polished version, slight improvements in all these little areas, but that's going to be because 704 sat down, combed over all the game, the overall game, and made the necessary adjustments and improvements. Now, this latest Unity engine is highly touted. The tools are probably a little more efficient. It runs a little better and probably get to a better final result, but it's really the developer who has to make it happen. So I'm glad that there's a new and improved Unity version of the new engine, but it's not like, okay, now that they're using this particular version of this particular engine, that's it. It's everything's fixed. That's not how it works. So they're using it, which tells me something, and there's a slim chance I could be wrong, but like I said before, you can't, unless you rebuild the game from scratch. The assets of the old engine are still there. Maybe, and I'm assuming, and it would make sense, that this new updated version of Unity is seamlessly integrated with the old version. So in other words, it brings on all these new updates without, altering the original engine. Otherwise, you'd have to build the game from scratch. That's not what they're doing. That wouldn't make sense, right? They invested a lot of resources into this game, and they're going to continue to build on it until who knows when. Maybe they have somewhere down the line they're saying we're going to start from scratch again, and it would make sense to me that by the time the next generation of consoles comes out, they're going to want to rebuild the game, of course, and start from scratch and upgrade everything, and so on and so forth. But this updated Unity engine, I would assume, works. It's integrated with the old version, so it just seamlessly works. So it will probably give them a higher level of efficiency in getting the things done that they want to. Okay, I'm hoping for that. But if you think that this is just going to magically wipe away the problems, that's not how it works. So I don't want people to start running with this idea like they're using this updated version of Unity and it's supposed to be really good, and man, this means everything's going to be great. That's not how it works. So again, I think it's a waste of time to even argue about game engines or even try to communicate with 704 that, hey, you shouldn't use Unity, you should go with the Unreal Engine or whatever engine, because one, they're not going to listen to you, and nor should they. They are the developers. They are the experts in game development, right? So I can be critical of them. I can point out what I like and don't like and what I think this game needs, but it's up to them to decide how to make that happen, what engine to use, what tools. It's like you're telling a carpenter who's building your kitchen what tools he's supposed to use. No, you told him what cabinets you want. You tell him how you want them designed, and you go through that, and then you stay out of his fucking way. If you want to offer him a cup of coffee while he's working, that would be a nice thing to do. But here's what would not be a nice thing to do. You don't go to his toolbox and say, why are you using that? You need to use this. See how that goes for you. So, a game engine, first and foremost, is simply a blueprint, a foundation, a framework on which to build a game. And it comes with a set of tools. That's all it is. So, understanding that and moving forward, I hope people can understand that, one, it's a waste of time, and it's really not what we need to be doing, is complaining about a game engine. Two, speaking of game engines, I also want to dispel this thing about how bad this Unity engine is. It is widely recognized by people in the industry as one of the best game engines. Now, somewhere along the line, people fell in love with this Unreal Engine and or the Cry engine, whatever fucking engine they, because they might have played one of these other games and it looks fantastic, and they're like, you know, this will fix NASCAR games, and that is just doesn't make sense. Okay, and this Unity engine, is just a different type of tool. Now, it's good news that this updated Unity engine is better, in terms of efficiency and all types of stuff, but it still does what the old engine does. It just probably added some assets or tools that help developers, maybe do things quicker or more efficiently. That's really what it is. So do not come expecting that this game is going to look like fucking Project Cars or Forza, and that's not going to happen. Now, what can happen in terms of maybe slight improvements to the visuals are the old tricks and things that I've talked about. Going back and working on the contrast, the lighting, the shading, or this issue with the anti-aliasing, and there's a lot of little issues that if you go and make slight adjustments, overall can make a difference. Is it going to make a big difference? No, it's not. Another thing that you can do, and this game desperately needs, is more attention to detail in terms of visuals. Everything in this game just feels like a work in progress. That's why it feels bare bones. It just doesn't feel like a finished product. And a big part of that is there's a pretty big lack of detail. And so they need to continue to go through the entire game and continue to add content and flesh out some details into the game. And when you do all those things I talked about, the lighting, the shading, the contrast, the aliasing issues, and working on details, when you add all these little things, it adds up to an overall slightly better looking game. But do not expect a completely different looking game. That's not going to happen until they rebuild the entire game from scratch. And we don't know when they're going to do that, and it doesn't make sense that they would do that now. This most likely will be the third year off of the original Heat Evolution build. And that is not necessarily a bad thing. And I've always said that the structure of the game I find to be pretty solid. It's all the other things that they need to work on. So, I don't know what else to say about this game engine issue. I looked further into it, and I really tried to find, am I missing something? Is something that I'm just not getting? Maybe I was wrong. And I didn't find that. And in fact, there are some videos that discuss not only what a game engine is, but how developers come to choose these engines. And at the overall consensus of these people describing these engines, and these are people who develop games themselves, is that there is no right or wrong choice on an engine. It is up to the developer to choose which tools he's comfortable using and what is his end game. What is the goal? What type of game is he making, and which engine would best serve that need? Which comes to the final point I'm going to make. NASCAR games, like all sports titles, are linear experiences. There's two types of games as far as I can think of. Right? I'm not telling you there's the only two games, but there's linear games and then there are open world games. And open world games like Grand Theft Auto, Red Dead Redemption, Far Cry, all these games that people love, with good reason. Those are open world games. And what is an open world game? It's simply a game that focuses on the environment and the map. Yes, they all come with stories and characters, but the true star of an open world game is always the environment, the map. If you go back and look at the original Grand Theft Auto 3, Liberty City, Vice City that came after that, San Andreas, all of these games, the best part of those games was always the map, the environment, because that's what caught most of your attention. What was happening in this world that you are dropped into, and the freedom that you have to go anywhere you want and do anything you want. And of course, with every game, that gets deeper and deeper and deeper and more realistic, and you're able to do things with each successive version that you couldn't do before. I remember that in Vice City, you died as soon as you touched water. Then in San Andreas, you could actually swim. So as these games have evolved, you can do more things in this environment. But the star is always the environment. And the main issue is that in an open world game, the point of it is that you can go anywhere, do anything. And the more freedom you have, the better of the game usually turns out to be. Of course, the story and the characters are very important, but the star of the show is usually the environment. And the things that I love most about these games is the fact that I never rush through them. I always take in every square inch of the map. I explore. I see everything. I'm going to talk more about that, I think, in a future video about what I like in games, what I really enjoy, and what I don't like. This video is already running pretty long, so I'm going to leave that at that. But the point is that NASCAR games are linear, and linear means that you don't have freedom. You are locked into a specific environment, and there's a limited amount of things you can do. In other words, the only time you have any real control in these games, in sports games really, is when you're on the court, the field, or the track, right? When you're driving the car. But even then, it's limited, right? When you go down the pits, the game kind of takes over. You could do certain things like make decisions on adjustments, but you don't have really real control, right? You can't drive to the garage. You can't drive to the track. An open world NASCAR game would be you're at home and you're driving your RV to the track or something, or you're catching a flight and you could stop off anywhere and do something, or even before or after a race, just walk up to people, punch them in the face, get into a brawl. It's ridiculous. Yeah, I get that, but that would be an example of an open world NASCAR game. Like, you should be able to do anything you want and go anywhere. Walk up into the stands, and smack somebody. But my point is that in a linear game, there's a lot less required of the game engine. An open world game has huge requirements because you have to always have things happening within that world that have nothing to do with you to give you that appearance and feel that you're in a living, breathing world. And NASCAR games, like all sports titles, are not like that. And I'm not saying they should be. I'm just giving you the apples and oranges differences. So, the Unity engine is one of the top engines. You can argue whether or not there's, who's the best. But that's not the point. The point is that it's among the best. This latest Unity engine is very highly touted. So, when you take that, take the fact that this is a linear game. The requirements of it are not really dependent on an engine. It's really dependent on the developer and how much time and energy they spend fleshing the game out, adding content, getting into the details, making sure that they continue to expand on all the things that are already there and adding, content and stuff like that. But They're not required to give you an open world or anything. It's a very enclosed environment, and it just doesn't require a super it doesn't require the same level of technology that or hardware or software that an open world developing an open world game you know doesn't require the same that same level of difficulty. So I hope that people understand that this Unity engine debate is really it's a non-issue as far as I'm concerned, and do not expect to see a drastically different or better looking game. It's gonna pretty much look like the last game. I'm more concerned with the changes that 704 is making as a developer. Are they doing the right things? None of these things have anything to do with the game engine. Now, they announced that they're using the updated version, and I suspect that the reason they're announcing it is just to get people off their fucking back. And I don't blame them, because nobody wants to be told what tools they should be using to do their job. And that's my main point. They're the experts. These guys are the people who sit there and actually work on the game. And I would like to have a little respect, at least for that. I can complain about the game. I can tell you what's right with it, what's wrong with it, what it needs. I can do the whole thing with ideas or asking them to add certain things and or tell them what we really want out of the game and what the game is missing, what would make a great game. I can do all that. What I can't do is tell them, hey, you're not using the right tools. Go use a different game engine. They know what they want, what they're comfortable working with, and what works for them. And the point is that the final result, the final product that you get, that is from their imagination, their decision making. So that is where the success and failures of these games come from. It's not the game engine. Now, game engines, that's what they're tools. So I don't think it's smart to just tell 704 what game engine they should be using or that they're using the wrong engine. And the Unity engine, as far from what I can tell and the research I've done, it is considered one of the top game engines. So I'm just hoping to see this end, this debate, because I have continued, even after the last time I did a game engine debate video, it just continues. It's one of those things that always pops up, and it's like, it never made sense to me. And I took a second look at it, and I'm telling you guys, I'm not lying to you. I really did kind of look, am I missing something? Maybe, something that doesn't make sense to me. I could be wrong. And I really did look into it, and I still feel the same. And my opinion on that subject hasn't changed. And I would like to think that if we focus more on the real issues of the game, maybe our voices will be heard. When you tell these developers what tools they need to be using, that to me is a way for them to be like, I'm not even listening to these people. They have no idea what they're talking about. These guys are telling us what game engine to use. And I think you're doing more harm than good. And I want 704 to listen to us. I want them to take us seriously. And even if they don't, agree with all our ideas, they're at least more likely to listen and say, hey, these guys really want certain things and they really don't like certain things. And we really need to focus on that stuff and not just have a bunch of people saying, why'd you use the Unity engine? That's not going to work. And if I'd be offended. If I was a game developer and that's what I'm reading in the comment section, I'm like, fuck this. I'm not even following this shit anymore. That's my opinion. Tell me what you guys think. And let's, I'm a little disappointed. I thought we were going to get news on the next game over the All-Star weekend. It didn't happen. So I don't know what happened. I don't know if there was a mix-up. So I think they're going to maybe announce it next week. And I really hope we get some details. I don't want to just find out, yeah, we're making the game and it's coming out in September. We got to get some details. So that's it. What do you guys think? I look forward to your opinions and your comments.